So the Steam Deck itself is a pretty cool piece of hardware, but the main thing that's going to sell it is what games can actually play on this. And of course, everyone wants to know, can you run Doom on literally any computer ever made? And of course, the Steam Deck is no different. Can it run Doom? Yes, it can. It can run Doom. Of course it can run Doom. You think it really would ship out here and it can't run Doom? But the question that everyone's been asking since like 2007 is, oh, it can play games, but can it run Crysis? And you can see right here that if we go ahead and download Crysis, we run through all the setup stuff, and no, it can't play Crysis. In my previous Steam Deck video, I talked about the hardware and how it felt to use everything, and it was pretty good. So now that I'm comfortable using the device, what should I actually use it for? The first thing you could probably guess is, games. So I've downloaded some games, I've tested some of those, and I'm going to walk you through the different levels of compatibility. And Steam already has some functionality to sort through your games, which are called library filters. But what does that mean? What can we do with these? We have verified and playable. We have verified, playable, and untested. Whenever you go ahead and hit to launch through a game, it'll tell you what default controller layout it's going to go for. Whenever you're jumping into game, you very well may want to have more or less overlays on here. I am going to turn it to level 2, which is basically just going to tell us our utilizations that we're going through and our estimated battery life. Obviously, if you tweak your settings to make the game be less performant, the hardware will work less hard, so you will get more battery. Okay, so this is how it looks on the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck screen works very well for this resolution. I'm gonna go ahead and say I am not going to play the games on the deck and show you this. I'm going to just swap over to Steam Desktop, which is something that you can do. You can use this as a computer, and I'm going to plug it in to something I can use to capture the footage, and you don't have to look at it from a screen like this, and it should be a little easier to follow. It is going to look bad. Like, I'm just going to be straight up and say, you watching it, unless you're watching it on your phone, like, it's just not going to look good because this screen is good at taking a lower resolution. Like, that's just really all there is to it. All the games, I'm not playing anything. Like, I'll let you know if the game's bad, okay? If it looks like it's bad, but I haven't said it, then it's totally fine. So let's swap over. All right, so this is Gunfire Reborn. This is a verified game on the list. This is a game that is supposed to work very well right out of the box. And I will go ahead and tell you, this game works very well right out of the box. I'm a big fan of this game. I think it works pretty great for the format. This is already a game that had pretty good controller support to begin with. So flying through this game and being able to run around and play it, it just works. You know, it works pretty well. You even have like button prompts on here that tell you things pretty well. Like if I hit the B button, wow, I did the dash that has the picture of the bee. You see that picture of a fist with right bumper? Oh, that's a fist. Left bumper, I put the little orb thing. Even if you've never played this game before, hopefully you can kind of pick up that, oh yeah, it's doing stuff. This is at a pretty solid 60. A lot of your games, you're just gonna have to case by case do some tweaks. Some games are going to be very easy to get running and you aren't going to have to do a lot of tweaks. Some games are going to be great at battery life. Some games are going to be not very good. They're going to be really hard to run, etc., etc. This happens to be one. Runs pretty great, pretty fun to play, and doesn't really cause me any issues at all. Now, I will say this right here, you can probably tell the difference. This is me trying to use the trackpad. This is me using the analog stick. It is much easier with the default config for me personally to be able to use the analog sticks, and that's just how I felt about literally every game that I've played on here so far. Is just, if I'm not trying to play some game where I'm like pointing at things, if I'm playing a game where I'm aiming at things, then I want to be using an analog stick. I haven't played any strategy games where you would want to be using a mouse and, you know, not very rapidly moving and you want more precision. But that's my experience with it so far, and that's my experience with Gunfire. Works pretty great. I would definitely recommend it. Let's go ahead and show off a different game. Now, say something in there wasn't working just right for you. We can go to this little cog. We can go ahead and hit manage, and we can go to controller layouts. And what this is going to do is it's going to go ahead and just let us be able to remap whatever we want. We can export our configs, but we also can browse community configurations for this and be able to get things really fine-tuned and try out some either the templates that they have on there or go to some of the community ones like this right here, intuitive keyboard and mouse, or X input for aim assist. There's a bunch of different ones for a bunch of different games that just kind of help you get things started really nice and easy. And that is not all of the tweaks, okay? There are actually some more in-depth tweaks that you may need to do. This is a game that is not verified. This is a game that has some issues, and I will tell you how to get around those issues. So if we go into our properties and we go to compatibility, by default, pretty much all these are going to be on Proton Experimental. I actually had to go back down. I had to go to Proton 7.0-1 for me to be able to get this game to work at all. There are some games that will kind of work, but you want to go back to make them really work. This is one that didn't work at all. This is also a game that's very tricky because it has a launcher. So we'll go ahead, it's using a compatibility tool, I get that. This is not using a Linux version. I think this game actually has a Linux version. It's just not very good. It's funny that Proton works so well that it's better to use a good Windows version of a game, generally speaking, than a bad Linux one. So that pops up on PC where you have to mess with your settings. So you can go to settings. I already have mine set up. It just says, hey, what FPS do you want to target, etc. But basically all we need to do, this has a touchscreen, so I'm just going to tap play. You don't have to plug in a keyboard or anything. If you want to do this all handheld, I know that I'm not doing this in handheld right now, but that's just so I can show you everything. You can just tap with your finger where it says play, and that'll start us right up into the game. There's no need to worry about carrying around whatever. And we should be able to just jump right into this. Press any key to continue. I just tapped on the screen, and it's going ahead and loading up. Now, I do really want to reiterate that this is not, like, in a beautiful resolution for displaying on YouTube. This is the resolution that the screen runs at. I'm doing this, you can kind of get an idea of how the settings work, what sort of frame rates you're going to get on this screen. I could optimize this for being like, oh yeah, this is like I'm running around and playing on a computer instead of the Steam Deck, but I don't want to do that. I want to play on the Steam Deck. So here I am running Steam Deck settings, and the visuals don't look that great on something that isn't at 1280 by 800. Also, that's why there's things cut off on here. It's not some weird visual glitch with this. It's just the resolution we're capturing in and that you're watching in, if you're using a normal sized TV or monitor, is it's not as tall as this or as wide as this. So you don't really get that. But yeah, I mean, I've played this game a fair bit on here, as well as Borderlands 2. They both had to use the change in compatibility, and it's been just fine. I mean, this is running really smooth. This is, I mean, definitely better than playing it on the console that it originally came out on. This is much nicer than Xbox 360, and it just works after, you know, making those necessary tweaks. But it's very easy. You just hit the one button and then it runs just fine. Now, obviously, if you want to go into the settings and you want to fine-tune things, if you want to try to adapt this to be running at a different frame rate, you can either go into the game or you can go into your Steam settings itself to really go, no, I only want to run at 30 FPS, I want to get more battery life or whatever. You have the power to do that. But this is a game that Steam says it has some issues. But does it really have that big of an issue? In my opinion, absolutely not. This is totally fine for me. So the Borderlands games are obviously a little bit on the older side. I did say that they came out on the 360, you know. So those aren't really getting a ton of attention from Valve. They are pretty easy to fix on your own, though. But something that does get a lot of attention is, one of the most popular games ever, Elden Ring. This game received a ton of attention from Valve. Unfortunately, the port was actually pretty notorious for being not very good, and Valve went out of their way to make fixes for FromSoft specifically to work on here, okay? Elden Ring has had a lot of stuttering issues. The game hasn't been running very smooth, and a lot of that has been from things like shader caching. Now, the Steam Deck is a locked down piece of hardware. People don't put their own, graphics cards and etc. into the Steam Deck. So because of that, the way the shader caching works is you can kind of figure out everyone's pretty much gonna be able to use the same kind of shaders on the deck, and Valve has used that to make their own special patches for this game to be able to run better. And let me tell you, it actually it runs so smooth. Like, if you only played it on here, you'd just be like, oh yeah, the PC port's just really good. Like, there's no issue at all. You would have no idea, because it just runs great. And that's the good thing about being able to play a new and popular game on the deck, is that things just kind of work whenever people, put in the time and effort to get them to work. So I'm definitely a big fan of Elden Ring on the Steam Deck. I think it controls very nice on here. I'm not necessarily the best player at Elden Ring, but I'm still having a good time, okay? It is a little weird playing with the giant controller, playing on a tablet with this, but it's definitely not bad. I don't really think you're at a disadvantage playing it like this at all. I haven't played since release, so, I'm not bad or anything, right? Please don't make fun of me. I've pretty much only praised the Steam Deck so far, but unfortunately, there are some issues with it. This device is not perfect, and I don't know if you can tell very well from here. It actually looks like the screen makes it look better. This game is tiny. It is so hard to make out the characters and the details, and then being able to aim on top of it. This is the trackpad. I am trying to move slow. This is me trying to be precise. So I want to aim at his head. You see that? I had to double back to do that because it is so sensitive. This is, to be fair, the out-of-box controls. If you want to tweak this, hopefully the polling rate won't mess with it and you will be able to tweak with it. I don't know. I don't know if this is because it's at such a low resolution and this is a PC game, so it's not built to do that. I don't know. And if I use the analog stick, it is maybe a tiny bit smoother, but it's still really jumpy. So it's very hard to do that. And it's just straight up, it's hard to see. And this is a game that I really like, and I love playing it. And the funny thing about it is this game's on the Vita, and it's fine. And the Vita's way smaller. So I think this might just be a thing that people need to make tweaks for. But I thought it was important to highlight that, yeah, not every game's perfect. Oh, yeah, look. Like, that took me so long to try to move back up to be able to aim at this dude. Like, look, let me move my cursor here. Actually, I'll do it on, someone I'm actually supposed to. All right, so I'm going to aim my cursor here. Yoink. Throw it at that dude. We'll go back up here. We'll grab one more, and we'll see if we can actually, in real time, pull this off. Nope, I cannot. I will have to actually practice that. Whereas this is a tutorial mission, and it should be pretty easy. Now, I will say a way around that. This right here, this is me using the touchscreen. So it's a little more precise. maybe try doing that. I don't know. But anyway, not all the games are perfect. This is Deadbolt, which is a perfect game, just not on the Steam Deck. I mean, it's not probably perfect, but it's nice. I like it. You should check it out. Just like you should check out this next part of the same video. Let's keep going. If you are having issues with game compatibility, something that's really nice with the Steam Deck is Steam Remote Play. If your main PC in your house can play it, you can probably stream it to the Steam Deck, assuming that, you have the Wi-Fi range to be able to walk around your house and play video games. Because you're using the processing power of your computer, The Steam Deck mostly just has to run video feed. Like, the battery life savings are so good on that. But I will say, in the case of Crysis, this was not really fair. I have been showing you playing it remotely, but there's actually a way to get it to work on deck. This brings us to the next category. Games that you can do tweaks to with some files to make work. And to be fair to the Steam Deck as well, double fair, all right? We're being really fair today. This is something you pretty much have to do on Windows anyway, is you have to get this nice little Win32, you grab these files. I think people grab these from Crysis Warhead normally, but there's also GitHub that you can go ahead and download a fix for the game. This is not a Crysis video. If you want to see how to fix this, go to the Steam forums. I'm sure they'll help you out. And yeah, once you do that, you can just play natively on the deck and it runs super well. By default, it does go ahead and fix to your screen resolution. The latency feels really good. I wouldn't say it really feels any better than the in-home streaming. They both felt very responsive. I didn't have any complaints about them at all. I will say I did get a chance to kind of learn the controls playing on this compared to the remote play, so it does feel a little better in that regard. I'm not just like, I died on the other one. So yeah, this is a game that users can tweak to kind of be able to bring life into them to run on the Steam Deck. Now, some popular games like Elden Ring have gotten help from Valve, but this game has actually gotten help from the developers. Now, I'm not actually going to swap over to the preset, but there is a preset on here. Actually, it might make me swap to it by default. It probably will. There is one on here that says Steam Deck. Now, unfortunately, I don't like the settings on the Steam Deck preset. I don't think they're very good. I guess I'll just go ahead and play with them for right now anyway. Yeah, I don't love them. I think that CD Projekt Red will probably do some extra work on this. It's okay. Let's actually see if they saved. Yeah, they do automatically save. So we'll play with them on for a second. I'm just going to start blasting some people and we'll have a good old time. But yeah, the CD Projekt Red has done, I don't know, what they thought was an okay job of trying to get some Steam Deck settings working on here. And that's another approach that developers can take, is just trying to make optimized settings for this. I really do want to make some optimized setting videos for the Steam Deck in the future. So if you have any games that, you know, hopefully are popular, like Cyberpunk, they're like, yo, I really want this game to run well. I'm trying to think of some newer games or just games that are hard to run that are kind of popular. Cyberpunk, I think, is a good one. Elden Ring, maybe even like Tiny Tina's Wonderlands might be a good one for me to run through and show some optimized settings going. This is how you get the most FPS with the best visuals. That is kind of what I mean by optimized settings. But yeah, I'm definitely going to try to do some of those. I think I've done a pretty decent job at showing you what you're going to be getting on your Steam Deck if you get one in Q2. If you go ahead and get one very soon. This is kind of the state of things. There's a lot of good here. There's a little bit of rough around the edges, but honestly, my impressions of this have been really nice. There's some quality of life little tweaks that they're going to need to do at some point, but like, I really, like, for me, and I'm saying this as a tinkerer, I'm not saying this as, you know, like, someone who wants you to buy this for your grandmother to play games on or something. I don't think that this is the device you hand to your 7-year-old. So I don't think this is a set it and forget it kind of thing. It's a, I will do a little bit of tweaks. I will know a tiny bit about computers, or I will at least look up on YouTube how to make some tweaks to things, and I will have a good time doing that. It's also not something, if you want to have 100% game compatibility, there's a lot of anti-cheats that you are not going to be able to get to fly on here. Like, a lot of games are not going to be happy with you playing it on the Steam Deck, and you have to recognize, if you want to be some pro player and play competitively on a Steam Deck, why? But also, you just probably aren't even going to have the option to do that, because anti-cheats don't work for everything. Like, for example, I don't know if Valorant works on here. I mean, you're going to have to go out of your way to be able to download that, because it's not even on Steam anyway. And on top of that, I seriously doubt the anti-cheat works on there. So that's just something to keep in mind. is there are some hoops and hurdles you have to get over to be able to do some things, because it's on Linux and because it's a completely different platform. It's on a weird device. This isn't some insanely powerful gaming PC. It is really, really good for the money, and there's a ton of community support, which will keep this thing alive for, I'm sure, a really long time. But my character's dead, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the video right there. If you have any suggestions for future Steam Deck content, please let me know. If there are any things, what are your questions about how the controls work, about how to get certain software set up, how does it feel to use, what are the best kinds of games to play on it, how do I crank the hell out of the battery life? You know, there's lots of little tricks you can do to get things going really nicely on here, and I would love to tell you about them, but I need to know what you want. You got to ask some questions, and I'll give you the answers. So please hit me with some of those in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Goodbye.